So have you heard of I-732 yet?
Supporters say the initiative to tax carbon emissions in our state, 732, is a wake-up call.
I believe it's urgent that we act now on climate change.
Gail Gatton, executive director of Audubon, Washington, says the measure is a moral obligation.
By focusing on birds, we sort of take on the big environmental issues of our times.
A 2014 Audubon report shows nearly half of the bird species in the U.S. will become threatened or endangered within this century due to climate change.
We really don't have time to wait.
That's why Gatton is urging voters like these to pass I-732, which would charge polluters a tax of $25 per metric ton of carbon emissions.
I-732 is a good, viable option. It's got bipartisan support. It's a proven method of reducing the carbon emissions that are causing climate change.
732 is also the result of a failure in Olympia to pass Governor Inslee's Carbon Pollution Accountability Act last year. The proposal would have taxed carbon emissions from major polluters and brought in more than $1.3 billion each year in state revenue. I-732's approach is different. It uses carbon tax revenue to cut our sales tax by 1%, eliminates the business manufacturing tax, and pays for a working family's tax rebate, giving 460,000 families up to $1,500 a year. Supporters say the average person would pay extra for gasoline and coal-fired electricity, but would get that money back in reduced sales taxes.
It's a pretty elegant, simple solution in many ways. You know, you take money in, you give money back.
But hold the phone.
We're very vocal about no because we know the harm it will bring to our communities.
Jill Mongoliman from the environmental justice group Got Green says 732 would disproportionately impact people of color and working families.
The cuts to sales tax and also the working families rebate, those are great, but they're not enough.
Despite 732's argument that it's revenue neutral, a state Office of Financial Management report says it would actually cost the state about $800 million in its first 6 years, at a time when, critics point out, schools and other state agencies are struggling for funding.
We have a revenue crisis in our state, and a lot of our communities depend on these social services, education.
Mongoliman is also concerned that the money from 732's proposed carbon tax does not go into programs that would have a positive impact on climate change.
We really want to look at it long term and not for these short term wins, just to say, hey, we did something on climate, but really how are we actually going to improve the lives and conditions of our communities on the ground?
732 has been endorsed by Audubon, Washington, and other environmental groups like Citizens Climate Lobby. But some leading voices on climate change, like the Sierra Club, are not on board.
We have taken a do not support position.
Robin Everett is the state's lead organizer for the Sierra Club, which early on saw some of its members help gather signatures to put 732 on the ballot. But Everett says the Sierra Club's official stance on this measure is to stand with communities of color and workers who say they were left out of the process.
The policy was crafted before consulting anybody. And when folks tried to influence that policy, there was a resistance to change it.
The Yes on 732 camp says it's listening to its critics who want more for workers and people of color. But supporters say if 732 is defeated, it's not clear when we'll get another chance to pass a law on climate change.
Is it better strategy to pass a good policy, start reducing emissions, and keep looking for opportunities to fund those other important projects? That is absolutely my position. Pass it now, keep working hard.
It may come down to this. Will voters have a sense of urgency to pass 732 as a step towards impacting climate change? Or will they have a sense of concern that 732 is a step in the wrong direction?
We really don't have time to wait.
I'd rather do this right than do it quickly.